Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil. And last night we got some data mined information on the coming era battles for the Jedi Vanguard. We got some information that I think is really good. We got some information that I think will upset some of the player base, and I think there's some good stuff here. There's some bad stuff. We'll kind of cover both of those things. I think overall the era battles for these Jedi Vanguards, and I think moving forward, we kind of have a good framework for what to expect, and now moving forward, what it means to invest and where to be really focusing your resources on, because this is a big change that I think some of us, myself included, did not see coming. And so we want to make sure that you guys are fully informed. Please like and subscribe, comment down below. Got to give our shout out to the channel members. Again, apologies. It's been like I said earlier, I recorded my Saw Gerrera video. We'll be releasing later today, but earlier. I had plans to do a bunch of stuff this morning, get cards updated, and my truck had a flat, and it took me like 2 hours it was a mess. It was a mess to try and get this thing. So I appreciate you guys sticking with me, keeping the faith. If you're ever interested, y'all know where the link is. It's below. Please subscribe, like the video. That helps this channel more than anything else. So I really appreciate you guys just being a huge part of the Fat Phil family. Let's get in here. Let's kind of talk about this era battle and some of the pros and cons of the coming change. Alright, so we're going to flip over to the Discord here. We're going to flip over to our Discord. Let's pull this up. So we've got the, the whole thing here. And so it starts out with, alright, the first tier account, victory counts are not shared. Required one or both, Temple Guard or Depa Billaba. Also allowed Jocasta Nu and Jedi Master Mace Windu. So notice it says also allowed. So you need to have at least one of the, and it says, so you can also use your Jocasta. So if you're like me, you're going to be able to kind of breeze through this. The important note here, it is recommended you have 2 units at Gear 5 for the best chance of success. Recognize that if you have a Temple Guard, you'll want to get them higher than Gear 5, because if you don't have Depa Billaba yet, you don't have Jocasta, you're going to need to invest more resources there. Next, in Tier 2, again, same situation, except it's recommended you have 2 units 5-star and Gear 9. So I would then say take them higher than Gear 9 if you only have one of those. I'm going to be okay, it'll be fine. Next, in Tier 3, it is recommended you have 2 units at 7-star Gear 12 for the best chance of success. Tier 4, one of the following, 2 units at Relic 5 for the best chance of success. Then we get to Tier 5, and this is where the big change comes. It is required that you have Jedi Master Mace Windu. It no longer cares about Temple Guard and Depa Billaba. It cares that you have Jedi Master Mace Windu. This is a tough pill to swallow, because I think a lot of us were looking at this Jedi Vanguard as the era battle that you'd go a little bit harder in because the requirements were less, and now you not only need to invest in these Jedi Vanguard, but also in the dark side clones to be able to take full advantage of these era battles when they appear after Mace Windu is in the game. So I'm kind of torn on this, because I understand that realistically, you'd spend a lot more money getting stuff back from the Dark Side Clone era battle than you would this Jedi Vanguard. However, I do think moving forward, players are going to be a little bit more careful, because you're committing to spending a lot of resources at once for this to happen. So for Tier 5, it's recommended you have him at Gear 12 for your best chance of success. Notice Mace is required, and also allowed as Jocasta. So it's not even Temple Guard and Depa Billaba that you're going to be using later on. It's Mace Windu and Jocasta Nu. So for those of us who did Conquest and got Jocasta, this is a big deal. And remember, that could play a big role as we get into some of the later tiers now. So now your required is Mace Windu, also allowed as Jocasta. Now it says 3 units at Relic 7, so I'm kind of curious here if there's a wording issue or if you are going to be allowed to use Depa Billaba and Temple Guard in this team, because it's saying required, also allowed, but then saying 3 units at Relic 7. So my assumption here is that you are going to be able, and maybe even up here, now that I read this again, I'm wondering if Depa Billaba and Temple Guard will be required, or if there's some wording here that does need changed. Because, you know, again, that's going to be very dependent on what it is. So that's your Tier 6 at Relic 7. Then at Tier 7, you need 3 units at, recommended to have 3 units at Relic 9 for the best chance of success. And again, Mace Windu and Jocasta, I'm assuming Depa Billaba and Temple Guard are going to be required based on the wording there. Now, when you look at that and you're like, man, I'm going to need how many Relic 9s, the Relic 7s, let's break down the tiers, right? Because we did get a, what's it called? Like, and this is, again, there's just some weird things where it's like, own Temple Guard at Relic 5, Mace Windu 7. So I'm kind of curious as to what the, are the other characters required here. I do want to say, I appreciate the CG, whether it was Meathead, whoever, is telling us what is going to be required. It does give us some idea of what you're going to need to do. I would like a little bit of more explanation on, is it 3 units at Relic 7, or is it just like these units? Again, I'm okay either way. I just want the clarity, right? At this point, I just want clarity. I've got some, other thoughts on the process. So now we get to the tiers, and they've got a little video here to show. So we're going to play the video. So Tier 1 is shards. Tier 2 is shards. Tier 3 is the gear again, right? Tier 4, we start getting into relic materials. Tier 5, pausing on Tier 5, you're going to always get Zimbido cards. And then it's just a matter of getting impulse detectors or arrow magnifiers. So you're going to get one of those along with the Zimbido cards at Tier 5. Tier 6, you're getting Omicrons, Droid Brains, and Gerda keypads again. And then Tier 7, 10 million credits and 2,000 crystals. That is, gosh, come on, thing. I want it. All right, give it some time here. I want to pause on that final thing because I did want to mention this. Did want to make sure that we talk about it a little bit. Okay. All right, so 2,000 crystals, 10 million credits. That's crazy. That's a lot of resources. Remember, going up here, the Gerda keypads, the Droid Brains, the Omicrons in that Tier 6, right, or in Tier 6. And what it says is that to get there, it is recommended you have 3 units at Relic 7 for the best chance of success. So there's a really good potential here for this era battle. While it does require Mace Windu, if you are someone who's going to wail on these characters and go hard, the fact that Relic 7 is going to get you materials that you're not going to have to spend is crazy, right? You're going to get to Relic 7 and be able to earn Droid Brains, Gerda keypads, and Omicrons. That is a really big change compared to the Dark Side clones. So you are getting a little bit more benefit from this era battle in that regard, that there is a lower cost of entry for this one to earn those Relic 9s. But then to get the 2,000 crystals, you do need Relic 9 characters there, which, again, if you're someone who's going to go crazy for them in the raid, that 2,000 crystals, depending how many times you're able to earn that through this, that is going to eventually pay off, right? Depending how many times we get this era battle. Not just after Mace Windu's release, but remember they did say that era battles will kind of periodically come back after the era that they're in. They'll periodically come back again. We don't know the timing there, but we know that they did say that will happen. So with that, guys, I'm kind of torn here. I don't like that Jedi Master Mace Windu is going to be needed for these later stage eras, because it does really change how you view an era battle now. I think the later stages are getting much more challenging, right? What it also tells you is that if you are someone where you're really trying to get a lot of ROI, but not trying to spend a crazy, ridiculous amount, there's potential here that you wail on the initial characters of an era, to get those rewards, and then the later ones, again, just depends on what your stomach is for spending. Now, with that said, if you're someone who, you're not going to spend on them anyway, I don't know that you can be super upset, because the earlier tiers did not change. You're still going to be able to get the free shards like we're getting in the Nightfall era battles, where, in 2 minutes I'll pull it up, that you're going to be able to earn those shards. That has not changed. I still think there's a ton of value to going in and getting the extra shards with your bonus crystals, because I do see where you look. I did not do that for Disguised Clone Trooper. I did it for every other clone, and I'm significantly further ahead. And that means that I'm potentially going to be in a spot where, maybe Mace Windu isn't going to happen right away, because I'd still need to get the Jedi Vanguard, and I won't be able to do that. But I will be able to use some of those characters in the raid sooner than, I'd be able to otherwise. And at the level, honestly, especially at my level, there's not a lot you're doing with your crystals anyway, so it does help. Here's another aspect that, let's give Capital Games credit, because they went in and they told us what's going to be required, right? They went in and they gave us the roadmap. They told you what you're going to need to do. They're preparing you for what is required, and I think that's a really nice touch, because could you imagine going into Temple Guard, wailing on them? You didn't touch the Dark Side clones. You wail on Temple Guard, thinking that you're going to be able to complete this era battle, and then realize all of a sudden that you need Mace Windu and you need to go get those clones anyways. So I want to give them credit for getting this, the data mine information in the game with enough time before Temple Guard is released that players can do one of two things. Not spend on Temple Guard because they ignored the clones, or time to catch up on the clones, right? CX2 is now in shipments. Oppo's now in shipments. You're still able to get packs for Disguised Clone Trooper and Scorch. So there's still ways that you can go in, obtain those characters, and then put yourself in a position to hit these era battles, depending on your wailing for the Temple Guard and Depa Billaba, right? So I think there is an element here of, hey, this isn't awful. It's not as bad as it looks. I think the people who are going to spend are going to spend anyways. And I was initially really heated, but having seen this, I thought about it. I calmed down. I feel a lot better. I do think this will be the framework for era battles moving forward as well. So when this next pirate era battle comes in, the first group is the, hey, I can wail on these ones, but then that also means to get to the next one, you're probably going to have to wail again, right? At least that's the information we have to go off based on the precedent here. So let me know your thoughts down below. Like, subscribe, comment. I love you all. May the Force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.